Wow. Can't really get it together today, can I? Hi, everyone. It's Professor Wooten. And today I wanted to talk about something that, you know, teachers, they want to talk about it, but we're worried about saying things online because then, oh man, we might lose our job or, we might get reprimanded by our employers or whatever. But as long as you don't name names, other either of students or of the institution, what is the problem? Okay. I need parents, administrators, deans, fellow students, and teachers to know this stuff. This is the crap we deal with. Okay. Now, I don't teach public school right now. I have. And how a teacher can stay in a public school environment for more than a year without absolutely losing their mind is a mystery to me. The only thing keeping those people alive has to be God. Because after 1 year, I had gained weight, I had to increase my anxiety medication, and I had to, for lack of a better word, sell out to keep my job. And that's BS. I'm sorry, it is. Teaching in this country was set up to give students skills. We have to teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay. Later, we did history and science and geography, and that's great. And that's exactly what we should stick to. Okay. But let me tell you some stories. Absolutely true. I swear on a Bible, these are true stories. Okay. So I start my first day at a public school, and I'm teaching ninth and 10th graders. Not my usual purview, but I figured, well, they can't be that bad. Huh. How wrong I was. Because these children, first of all, they were just coming off COVID. So they had been a year and a half of I can log on when I want, I can do my homework when I want, I can, stay up all night and work on school instead of doing it during the day, etc. Which I get that it's an adjustment to go from that to back to a structured schedule. And I tried to give them grace on that. But these children could not live without their cell phones or their iPads. The school provided iPads, which in later grades, like juniors and seniors, I could see that because they're going to need to do a lot of research. They're going to need access to databases and libraries and so that I totally understand. This school gave iPads to kids starting in the 5th grade, 5th or 6th grade. And totally unnecessary. How are they supposed to learn how to handwrite if they type everything? How are they supposed to learn how to write cursive, which by the way most of them don't know how to do, if all they're doing is typing? How are they supposed to learn how to use a book? And you might be thinking to yourself, use a book? Yes, that's going to be the first story I tell. Okay. Um, and it was just astounding to me. They talked to each other constantly. They did not listen to anything I had to say. I finally had to yell. I had to yell, yo, really, really loud to get their attention. And I told them from that moment forward, anytime they heard that word, yo, it meant stop talking, turn around, pay attention. Amazingly, it worked for the most part because it wasn't it wasn't what they were used to. But I can't tell you the number of kids I had to tell to put their phones away, put your iPad away, quit talking to each other. I mean, it was like dealing with toddlers, and these kids were 13, 14, 15, 16. And it was unreal. I got so frustrated, and I took away a bunch of cell phones, took them because they signed a cell phone policy saying that if their cell phone was out during class, they would get it confiscated. So yeah, I did. And yeah, their parents were called. Did their parents do anything about it? No, because I kept having to take their cell phones away. Same people all the time. Eventually, like by the third quarter of the year, I had gotten most of them to stop with the cell phones. And that was, it took me 6 months to teach them The basic respect. When someone else is talking, you don't talk. You don't use a cell phone to text your buddy while you're in class. A lot of them had excuses. Well, I need to text my mom and make sure she's picking me up. You can do that when school's over. Put it away or I'm taking it. And it was always attitude and just disrespect. Constant disrespect. Okay, so this next story actually happened at a university. I was teaching in Indiana. It was a for-profit university, so not like a state university like IU or something. And they just basically let anyone in. And that's fine as long as, because they did placement testing and such to make sure that students were taking the right courses to help them either get caught up if they had been out of school for a while. I've taught a lot of adult learners, and sometimes they need to start a little further back just to get a refresher. And I taught some of those courses. And a lot of times it was fun, and I got to learn a lot from them, hopefully as much as they learned from me. And one day I was with a developmental English class. Okay, so that's, let's go back to sentence structure and parts of speech and learn how to write an essay, that kind of thing. And I told them to turn to a certain chapter in their book that we were going to review it. And they sat there like this and said, "What page?" And I said, "It's this chapter. Just go to this chapter." "But what page is that?" "Look in the table of contents." "What's a table of contents?" "Are you kidding me?" "No, what's a table of contents?" OMG. My lesson for the day turned into how to use a book. Where a table of contents was, what its purpose was, how to use it, noticing that the page numbers were on the bottom of the page, but so was the chapter number, what it means to flip through a book till you find what you need. These students of various ages, it wasn't a particular age group, simply didn't know how to find a chapter in a book because they'd just been they'd just been spoon-fed page numbers all the time. Why? Now, I had a similar problem with my kids in the high school, the 9th and 10th graders. They had been using their iPads as dictionaries for 4 years. So they never had touched a physical dictionary. And so when we were working on vocabulary, and I noticed they just kept putting the first definition that popped up rather than looking at all the definitions. I went to the website that they used, only one definition popped up. So that's the one they used. I got out a dictionary and showed them there are multiple definitions for some words. And you have to make sure you're using the right part of speech, and it has to match the context of this sentence. And I had to teach them, I had to back up and teach them what it meant to use a dictionary. Well, what does a V mean? That means it's a verb. What is ADJ? That'd be an adjective. So I actually went to the school and said, I need 23 dictionaries. And from that moment forward, when they did vocabulary, they had to use a dictionary, a printed dictionary. The first day was a disaster because they didn't know how to look up a word. They were just, if it started with an S, they just started at the beginning and started flipping pages until they found it. Instead of going to, if the word was structure, let's say, instead of going straight to the STs, they started at S and flipped. I go, what are you guys doing? And they told me, I said, what's the second letter? And they said T. I said, so you see the top of the page where it says this word to this word? Yeah. You guys know how to alphabetize, right? Yeah. Why aren't you starting in the STs then? Oh, I didn't know that was how it worked. Okay, well, that's how it works. And then they still were only using the first definition. And so they were losing points left and right because they weren't doing what they were told. That you need to look at all the definitions, figure out which part of speech it is, use the correct definition, and then write the word in a sentence correctly. I added that last part about writing it in a sentence to ensure that they got the right word, right definition of the word. And you wouldn't believe, I just can't even, I just can't even. I'll just put it to you that way. By the end of the semester, they were fairly comfortable with the dictionaries. They got faster and faster at using them and using them correctly. And it was just a demonstration of, if you have high expectations, and in this case, I don't think that's a high expectation. If you have high expectations and you require much of them, they will hem and haw and groan and moan. But eventually, as long as you don't back down, they'll do what you want them to do. I don't back down for anyone, ever. I don't back down to parental pressure. I don't back down to administrative pressure, which is probably why I am no longer working there. Although even if they had offered me a contract, I would not have taken it because it was too stressful working there. Another instance I can give you is at that same school, I had a student who constantly talked, would not shut up. And I did everything I could. I put her in the back of the room. I put her off by herself on the side. I kept her away from all her friends. She just kept doing it. Just kept doing it. She didn't care who she was sitting next to. She would just want to talk. I wrote her up, I don't know how many times. And then we get to midterm of the second semester. I send home a notice that she's failing. Her father needs to sign it. I don't get it back on Monday. I said, that's okay. Just bring it tomorrow. I don't get it back. I don't get it back. I don't get it back. Friday, she finally rolls in with it. And I look at it and it's signed, first of all, in pencil. Second of all, it's clearly been erased many times. And I have talked to this parent multiple times about their child. So I emailed the parent saying, hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. We're at midterm. Her current grade is this. I sent home a notice. Did you get a chance to look at it and sign it? And he wrote back, no, she didn't have me sign anything. So I had proof that she forged it. I mean, not that the erasure and pencil wouldn't have been like the big clues, but I wanted to cover my butt. So I print out the email. I write her up. I take the evidence to the principal and the assistant principal, and we go over it, and they say, what would you do if you had the choice? And I said, suspend her. And they said, over this? I said, no, over the fact that this is the 8th time I've written her up. She's never had a consequence, and she's just going to keep doing this crap until she gets a real consequence. And they said, well, we think that's a little punitive and harsh. It's a consequence. What she did was not only against the rules, unethical, it's illegal, it's forgery. How is just talking to her going to make a difference? In the end, the principal and the assistant principal totally ignored me, brought the student down to talk to her, and then sent her back up to class. I happened to be her teacher at that time. When she left the room, I knew what it was about, and I thought, yeah, this is going nowhere. And when she came back, everyone was studying independently, and her friend asked her, what was that about? And she laughed and said, oh, I forged my dad's signature on the midterm report, and they just wanted to talk to me about it. And they just had a good laugh over it, which I knew is exactly what was going to happen. So at lunchtime, I go downstairs to do, lunch monitoring, and the principal's down there. And I said, so how'd your conversation with student go? Well, it seems like she understood. She was very remorseful. And, I go, boy, you have no clue, do you? She goes, what are you talking about? I said, she totally played you. She was in my classroom when you called her down and when you sent her back. And when she came back, she sat with her friend and laughed about how she got away with it again. This person, this principal, actually looked shocked that the student would lie to her. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Kids lie all the time. And that's why nothing ever happens. I'm going to roll this into something that happened to me recently at a college. Okay. This instinct of administrators to just automatically believe the student is, first of all, incredibly disrespectful to the instructors. We work our butts off. Thank you very much. So I'm teaching an online course, And I'm doing what I do, answering emails every day, sometimes twice a day, keeping up with everybody, giving them feedback, blah, 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 blah. And I get an email from my boss saying, we need to have a chat. And I said, okay, fine, whatever. We have a talk. And she tells me that a couple of students complained that I wasn't, engaged enough. All right, fair enough. That's fine. I said, okay, well, I'll make sure that I do X, Y, Z and stay more engaged with them. Great. So I do that. And I start posting regular announcements, and I'm giving them much more detailed feedback. Not that what I was giving them wasn't detailed to start with, it was. And trying every way I know how to be gracious yet firm, because it's my experience that when people are entitled, the only way you get through to them is by being firm with them. Well, I get an email a few weeks later, and now it's time for a Zoom discussion with my boss and the assistant dean. I know what this is about. So I go the night before the Zoom, I go through my online class and I take a look at everybody's grades. I look at every email we've exchanged because I have a feeling I know what they're going to say. And I just get a sense of, okay, where's my class at right now? I had a good idea, but I needed to write stuff down so I could refer them to those things. So I get on the call and they say, well, we'll tell you what we're hearing and then you can address it. And I said, fine. And so they say, well, we have a lot of students who are complaining about that you're not gracious or, and that you're mean in your emails, and that this particular assignment you didn't give good enough directions for. And so they flunked it. And I said, well, okay, I've been firm and honest with them in their emails. If they take that as mean, it's not what it was intended to be. And they're like, okay, but what about this assignment? And I said, well, there are 11 students in the course. 6 of them did it perfectly. And the ones that are complaining didn't follow the instructions. Well, you should have given them an opportunity to do a rough draft so you could give them feedback. I did. And the ones that are complaining, 3 of them didn't even do a rough draft. That's on them, not me. Anyway, this entire conversation became about, you need to do this. You need to post a video. You can't just let them read stuff. I did. I posted a video, wrote instructions, gave them a sample, and gave them a rough draft. What more could I possibly do in an online class other than not make it an online class, make it a virtual class? That was the only other option I had. And they realized, I think, during the course of the call that they hadn't looked at my course at all. They simply took the students at their word and then blamed me for their failure. Their failure was on them. I gave them every resource I could in an online environment to help them succeed. I never not answered an email. In fact, I answer emails within 12 to 24 hours. I never ignored an issue. If someone sent me something specific out of their assignment that they didn't understand, I either sent them feedback that was as detailed as possible, sent them to a video that they could watch if they preferred, or offered them an explanation, whatever I needed to do to help them. In the end, I was forced to let those people redo the assignment, 5 of them, okay? Of the 5, 3 redid it. Of the 3 that redid it, 2 basically sent me the same thing they had sent me before. They didn't make any changes. They did not improve anything. So it made no difference. And the one who actually made an effort still didn't meet the requirements of the assignment, even after that student had emailed me and asked, how do I meet this requirement? And I answered with specific instructions. Do this, 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 and this. Did they do that? No. I'm sick and tired of being a teacher that is accused of being responsible for students' failure when it's their failure. It's not mine. Now, I am the first to admit, if I give an assignment and basically everybody does bad, That's on me because clearly the assignment didn't have clear instructions, or it didn't include all the information they needed, or they didn't have the proper video to watch. I'm totally willing to either throw out that assignment, redo it, or replace it. Okay. Because that's on me. But when half the class gets it right and half the class does dare I say, I'm just trying to do the bare minimum kind of job to get a C, and then gets ticked when I give them an F because they didn't meet the basic requirements of the assignment, that is their fault, not mine. And it's the same in high school. It's the same in junior high. It's the same in elementary. You do not get to blame your teachers when your students fail unless that teacher's instructions were not clear. That's the end of that discussion. If you have a kid who's flunking, well, no matter what grade they're in, whether they're in K-12 or college, whatever, do not assume it's the professor's fault or the teacher's fault. Odds are it's your kid's fault. Look to your kid first, then look to the teacher. And if you're upset about your kid's grade, set up a freaking conference. Teachers can do it on Zoom. We can do phone calls, and we can do in person. Just let us know what you want. But if you don't communicate with us, how are we supposed to know you're concerned? If you don't communicate with us, we have no choice but to make assumptions. Don't let us make assumptions because you're not going to like them. All right? Communicate with us. Get off your freaking phones. Pay attention to your kids and communicate with their teachers. Now, clearly in college, you cannot do that because of the federal guidelines for privacy. Okay? You can't call a teacher. But don't email a teacher thinking you're going to get information because you're not. All right. We legally cannot give you any information when your child is a college student. It's just against the law. So don't come to us first. Go to them first. Ask to see a copy of the assignment. Does it make sense to you? Then ask your kid, what didn't you understand? You need to get involved as a parent. And if you're a college student watching this and you're not doing well, don't you start off by blaming your teachers. Are there bad teachers out there? Oh God, absolutely. I've seen horrible teachers during my career, but that doesn't mean every teacher's horrible. In fact, most of us are pretty damn good at what we do. So don't blame us. Talk to your kid first. And I can't say it strongly enough. Your kids are going to be on their phones and electronics if you're on your phones and electronics. Parents, get off your freaking phones. Pay attention to your kids. Help them with their homework. Pay attention to their grades. Talk to their teachers. Get friggin' involved. Thus endeth the rant. I hope you have gotten something out of this video, or at the very least enjoyed it. And I really hope that it can make a difference to some people and wake people up and give people a kind of vision into what teachers deal with. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching the video. Please share it, subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon, okay? All right, take care, everybody. Be blessed. Have a great weekend. Bye.